Hello and welcome to Kaleidoscope, where we like to keep it diverse. And today we have a very interesting writer with us who broaches a subject that really I haven't thought about for a very long time, but is the source of the dreams and aspirations for many young women in our country and, frankly, around the world. So please join me in welcoming Anvita Sudarshan to our show today. And she is the author of this book called Beauty Queen, quite simply. And she is a beauty queen herself. She's won multiple pageants and has some experience, I think about a decade worth of experience in this field of pageants. And this book is, in many ways, a how to guide to make your way through this world of pageantry and the demands of it and what is required of it. So, Anvita, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on the show.
My pleasure. I was just chatting with our producer earlier, and I said it's been a long time since I've actually thought about the world of pageants. Of course, like every other young girl, when you're younger, you're far more involved in these things, and then as you get older and get engaged in other aspects of life, this doesn't quite come up as often. But tell me about yourself. What made you write this book?
Well, again, like any other young girl, pageants did play quite a bit of a role in my life, and I was growing up. Because when I was 4 was when Sushmita Sen and Aishwarya Rai won their crowns. So that did have a very heavy imprint on my mind as I was growing up. Once I moved to Bombay, that was something that I wanted to emulate. That was something I wanted to do myself, and that was the time that India hadn't won so many crowns in a very long time. So I got into the world, really, so to speak. I did Femina, Miss India, and I did IMC had just started at the time, so I did that. But while I was doing all this, what was obvious was that good, credible research material was so hard to find. There wasn't much, especially in the Indian diaspora, about how to go about pageants in a very holistic way. You come across a lot of advice because you're in the midst of it. You come across a lot of advice. You come across a lot of people telling you how to do this, how to do that. None of it is really all that holistic. Most of it is just to do with quick fixes.
Hmm.
And that's really not the way to approach anything in life. If you're going to do something, you've got to be able to do it well. And you've got to be able to do it in a way that's good for you. So that was a gap that I saw, and I wanted to address that.
Hmm.
And by 2012 or so, I had won Miss India Worldwide. By that time, I was confident that I knew pretty much about what I was talking about, at least. Wasn't fumbling in the dark anymore. So I decided to put it down on paper and hopefully to get across the same word to more people who would come that way.
Hmm.
So,
I
yeah,
think you have a point there because a lot of girls, especially in small town India, who may have these aspirations but don't have access to verifiable
exactly.
information, and the internet can really be a scary place and a place
It
that can
can.
take you in all directions. So I think this is helpful in addressing that need with a certain amount of reliability, and I think that's
Mhm.
important. Anvita, I'm interested in knowing from you. A lot of times. I remember, of course, the 1994 pageant wins, which were like a double barrel win for India, really.
Yes,
I
yeah.
mean, it just swept across the country. Subsequently, of course, we had further winners on the international
Yes.
stage. And then there's been this consistent phase where there's been a bit of a backlash about pageants, not only in India, but in other parts of the world. How do you, as a pageant winner and as a beauty queen, feel about this kind of commentary when people say, "Oh, it's not that. It's the usual kind of criticisms about the world of pageants."
Well, everything, to be very honest, has its pros and cons. You can't have anything that's completely good. You can't have anything that's completely bad either.
Hmm.
So everything's got its good side, everything's got its bad side also. And ultimately, what matters is what side are we looking at? What side are we looking to build?
Hmm.
Because the way I see it, there are two sides to pageantry. One is it's a very visible world. And in a lot of sense, in a lot of way, that visibility is a very good thing also. Because I remember when I was growing up in the 90s, for example, what that meant was it meant freedom.
Hmm.
That was the mentality I grew up with. That it's not that you're hiding behind closed doors anymore, you're out there in the open. And this is one of the ways that you are.
Hmm.
There are 10,000 ways of doing that. And how each person does it, it depends on that person, ultimately, what
Hmm.
their talents are, what their interests are. But this was one way of being out there and saying that, yes, I'm here. And but there is a flip side of that also. The flip side of that is media objectification, objectification of the female form, etc. And to be very honest, that's always going to be there. It's not something that's going to disappear just because you stop having pageants. That is something to do with the general attitude of human beings, that the attitude we have towards other fellow human beings, so to speak. Now, the thing is, beauty is something that, especially female beauty, more than male beauty, but this does go both ways. It is something that historically has been considered very dangerous.
Hmm.
And what is dangerous is usually something that gains a lot of power. And what do you do when you have something that can be potentially very powerful? You start hoarding it. You start keeping it away from something else because now it can be made use of. Visibility is something that can potentially reduce that,
Hmm.
but it can also potentially increase the objectification. Now,
Hmm.
that is up to us. How we use that is entirely up to us.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's not
You know,
necessarily a pageant.
there's the physical aspect of pageants, of course, but then there's also the mental aspect, right? The
Yeah,
fact that you do have to face a lot of rejection should you embark on this path.
you
Uh,
do.
you and you know that you will be judged for often for things that you cannot change, say the shape of your body.
Yeah,
But pageants, like in modeling, they have certain standards, they have certain measurements that they go by.
true.
What is your advice to young girls who want to get into this business and really are not prepared for the kind of evaluation and judgment and rejection that comes with it? For every Sushmita Sen, there are lakhs who have not gone that distance.
True, but we forget that even the one who won at the end has faced that also. Now, that is something that's part of the world. That is something that, again, it's up to the person to make use of the way they decide to make use of. And this is where good mentorship comes in, which we have to a certain extent in the pageant world, but not entirely. So, when you face rejection,
Hmm.
that's when you have the potential to grow further as a human being. If
Hmm.
everything falls into your lap, there is actually no scope for growth. And for me, as a 19-year-old, that was probably the best thing that could have happened to me.
Hmm.
Because so far, I had been pretty much successful at everything that I had done.
Hmm.
I was good at studies, I was good at extracurriculars, I was good at pretty much everything that school had to offer.
Hmm.
I had never really failed in my life.
Hmm.
And to fail at such a high stage,
Hmm.
it brings you back to reality. And that is very important also. We forget that actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you think of that from the perspective of a 19-year-old girl,
Yeah,
it's tough. It's tough to deal with. I mean, you need a certain strength of character and a family network really that can help you get out of something like this. Don't you think so?
it's not just about the family network because chances are the family will never have been through something like that. Not
Mm,
everyone has someone in the show business. Not
mm,
everyone has someone in their lives who's gone to such a visible platform, really.
mm,
You
mm,
know, uh, to be very honest, what we need in the pageant world is good one on one mentorship,
mm,
where pageant mentors can form a connection with pageant aspirants, take them through the journey, Because see, when we say what advice can we give someone on a very general platform like this, that can only be very general. You can only say, okay, you got to get up, dust yourself off, and move on, chin up. That's pretty much all you can say. But real advice can only happen when you know the person, when you know what they're going through. That network needs, it does exist. We all form our networks. We all form our support networks when, once we go out into the world. We have our friends. We do find mentors in our respective fields also.
Hmm.
But again, you have to be a pretty social person to do that. Not everyone is. Some people do tend to closet themselves away. And for that, a formal network of something of that sort would be very helpful. That's where you can give someone advice or help them move through something. Say, okay, you know, that's really not a big deal. This stuff happens. You can do this in case of this.
Sure.
Because the judgment that you're talking about, to be honest, is going to be there in whatever you do.
What is the Anvita? What is the energy like at these pageants amongst the girls? And I'm very curious about that aspect as well.
I think everyone is, to be honest. It's not as spicy as everyone makes it out to be.
Okay.
It's very stressed out,
All
definitely,
right. Mm-hmm.
because you're up since 5 in the morning and you're potentially going to be staying up until 2 in the morning training and
Right.
going to press conferences and rehearsals and whatnot. So it's usually a very long day. You're overworked. You do not have energy for anything more than what you have to do.
So there's no drama, you're saying?
There is drama. You put 10 people together, there is always going to be drama.
Yeah. Right.
And there's always drama relating to who's going to win, who's not going to win. That forms most of the drama. There are speculations. Sometimes those speculations happen to be right. Sometimes those speculations happen to be wrong.
Hmm. Hmm.
So there are your petty jealousies at times also. For
Hmm.
example, you might feel that a certain person is doing better than you are. And
Hmm.
consciously, unconsciously, there might be a certain amount of jealousy that you project towards that person. But
Hmm.
that is your general human stuff. Generally speaking, it's when you put about this is on a national level that you only got about 25 to 30 girls. On an international level, you usually have up to 90 girls.
Hmm.
So when you put about 25 to 30 girls or 90 girls together, it now depends on the girls as to what kind of energy comes out. I have
Hmm.
seen some brilliant energy at pageants. I remember I turned 21 when I was doing IMSHI, that is Miss India Universe. That was, and my roommate and I had consecutive birthdays. My
Hmm.
birthday was one day after hers, and we did get along very well. And on the day of her birthday, some of the girls bribed the hotel staff to get us chocolates. Some of the chaperones risked their, sorry,
I said that's sinful.
that is sinful, but that is really
During
sweet.
the pageant, yeah, because you've got to watch everything you eat. Yeah.
You do, but that's really sweet. And
Hmm.
it's those little gestures that really make your day.
Hmm. Have you
And
maintained trips with any of the people that you've been in pageants with as co-competitors? I mean, have they evolved into friendships and things like that?
they have the same roommate that I was just talking about. We're
Mm-hmm.
pretty good friends now. And
Okay.
there are a few other people that we have stayed in touch.
Hmm. Hmm.
You do
And
develop friendships.
Anvita, we have a lot of beauty queens in our country. If you had to rank them in terms of how they've done in life post pageant, where would you put them?
That's actually a bit unfair, to be honest, right?
Well, I mean, pageants is all about rankings, so.
Yeah, but in the world of pageantry, life is not necessarily all about ranking.
But in terms of just the professional, um, you know, like I would think Priyanka Chopra, for example, has been super successful, like a post pageant winner. Even
Hmm.
amongst the post pageant winners, I
Hmm.
think she's really gone the distance.
She has, definitely. But when we do that, we tend to look at only the ones in the entertainment industry. Most
Hmm.
girls who've been to the pageants actually don't go into the entertainment industry. It's an
Interesting.
experience for them. And
Hmm.
once that's over, that's over. They move on to something else.
Right.
For example, there was a Miss India Worldwide 1991.
Hmm.
Today, I believe, well, I don't know what exactly she does right now. She does something in Netflix at the moment, but a few years ago, she was the president of Universal Studios.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah,
amazing. Hmm.
I believe she heads maybe Asian content in Netflix or something, but I don't remember right now, to
What's
be
her
very
name? Do you
honest.
remember her name?
Bela Bajaria.
Bela Bajaria. And you
Yeah.
yourself, you're in organic farming now. You were just telling me, and you run a bookstore.
Yes. Yes. So I have come a very different path.
Yeah.
I've taken a very different path from that. So, and actually, there is this I wanted to mention. I think this was in 81 or 82. There was a Miss Venezuela who won Miss Universe.
Mm-hmm.
In 98, she ran for presidentship in Venezuela. She lost against Hugo Chavez, in fact.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, different people take different paths.
Mm-hmm.
Some people, some of the contestants that I know have, they're homemakers now, they have kids, they're very happy doing that. Some other people are still in the world of entertainment and acting. It really differs from
Mm-hmm.
person to person to person. Like you said, I'm
Yeah.
into organic farming now.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I think it was for a while when the pageants were considered like stepping stones into
Yeah,
Bollywood, or at least that was, obviously everybody can't end up in the movies, and nor
yeah,
does everybody want to end up in the movies also.
yeah,
So there's that part of it as well. We mustn't just assume that everyone who gets into a beauty pageant wants to be in, the movies.
yeah.
But it was for a long time thought of a career path, and that was one area in which actually I was kind of impressed with the world of pageants, was because the entertainment industry can be kind of sleazy for women. And
It
one
can.
thing that a pageant win did do, especially in the 90s, 2000s, much before the corporatization of the entertainment
Yeah,
industry, was to provide a layer of protection to these girls,
true,
once they,
true,
tried to get into movies. And I
true.
felt that in that way, I think the world of pageants really did well.
It did, definitely. And that is something it still does to a large extent,
Hmm.
especially if you're part of a major pageant. If you're part of Femina or Diva Miss Diva, they
Mm-hmm.
do provide that kind of protection because you're signed on with them for the next so
Hmm.
many years. I think the
Hmm.
contract is for 1 year. It was when I was participating. I'm not very sure of now. The
Hmm.
specifics of these things, they keep changing, so I'm not very sure. The
Hmm.
thing is that I think what primarily changed there is so many different pageants started popping up, especially
Hmm.
in the last few years. And uh, there is there are at least three Mrs. Indias at the moment,
Wow.
and there's something called Diadem. There is something called Indian Princess. There
Well, what happened to Glad Rags? Remember there was a Glad
there's
Rags
Glad
miss.
Rags also. Yes, I don't. Glad Rags doesn't catch as many eyeballs as it did.
Really? Okay. Okay. It used to
It
be
used
huge.
to. It used to be huge, and especially the Manhunt used to be
Yeah.
much huger than the uh,
Is it still
Mega
big?
Model.
Is that still
I
big?
I think some of the other pageants have taken
Okay.
um, taken over. Yeah, Glad Rags is still big. If you participate in Glad Rags, you still have a tag attached to you, I believe. But there
And
are other pageants which have kind of climbed the ladder.
hmm, hmm.
You were saying something
Yeah, I was just wondering if that magazine was still coming out, Glad Rags.
that I'm
There
not
was a
sure.
magazine.
I think we'll
Yeah,
have to
in the
Google that
90s.
probably.
It was like, I remember it was like this really fancy, glossy, and that for
Yeah,
that time expensive magazine, and you had Aishwarya Rai and Lisa Ray, and that lot of
yeah,
beauties on it.
yeah.
But yeah, so now when you meet younger girls,
Yeah,
and they find out that you've been in pageants, what are the questions that they have? What are the curiosities? How young are they when they realize of when they understand this world exists?
I think they're pretty young because now you got so many teen pageants as well. There's Campus
Okay.
Princess and there was a teen Miss Navy or something of that sort also a few years ago. And then there's a whole set of your NRI pageants. which is Miss India
Right.
USA, Miss India
You,
UK,
you won
etc.
Kuwait, right? You won
Yes,
Kuwait.
I
That,
did. I
yeah.
did.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
and they are, especially Miss India USA, UK, these also have a teen version of it. So, girls
Okay.
do start looking at it at a pretty young age.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I personally am in two minds about it. I'm not very
Yeah.
sure how good it is or how bad it is
Mm-hmm.
because we have the example of Venezuela in front of us. They start training their girls at an extremely young age, which has won
How,
them a lot of crowns.
how
How
young do
young
they?
girls get into training schools at the age of 9 or 10 sometimes.
My God,
And these training regimens are
brutal.
extremely brutal. Yes.
Yeah.
I, yeah, by the time they're teenagers, they're going on all these crash diets, etc. And this is specifically Venezuela I'm talking about. I haven't
Mm.
heard this much of a brutal regime anywhere else as of yet. But I've even heard of pageant trainers advising girls to have these sort of wire meshes put on their tongue so that when you
Mm.
eat, it's not very comfortable. So you don't eat as much.
Oh my God.
And that is a bit scary, especially when you're talking about girls getting into it younger and younger and younger.
Yeah.
What I like about the age of 19, 20 is that, yes, you are naive at that age, you are inexperienced, but you're still old enough to deal with this stuff.
Mm. Mm.
You're old enough to be on your own.
Mm.
At the
No,
age of
I think
14,
yeah, I think South
yeah,
America has been really kind of into the pageant world for a while now, and I
yeah,
remember back in the 80s, early 90s, it was the South Americans who were like sweeping the crowns.
even today,
But yeah, but even now, I was reading in Colombia, there's a lot of like plastic surgery and things of that sort
there
to get
is,
that perfect look to fit into the
there
pageant.
is.
How do you feel about plastic surgery for, pageantry? I mean, it seems like it's become the norm, hasn't it?
To an extent, it has, unfortunately. In fact,
Hmm.
and I was at Femina Miss India South in 2009. They have these specialists who come, and the job is to help you get to the best version of yourself. You have dermatologists, you have trichologists, you have nutritionists, you have physical fitness trainers, etc. So the dermatologist there, she looked at me and she looked at my nose specifically, and she said, you have a little bit of a bump over here on your nose, but don't worry about it. If you go to an international pageant, we can sort that out for you. And for a 19-year-old, that was a huge culture shock for me because
Yeah.
that was something I didn't expect. And I was a pretty vain 19-year-old. I thought the world of my looks as well. So it
Hmm.
also gave me a little bit of a. I went back to the mirror and suddenly I do see that bump on my nose that I'd never seen before.
Right, right, right.
And yeah, plastic surgery is a quick fix, to be very honest.
Hmm.
And it's not worth it, especially for something like a pageant. It's
Hmm.
really not worth it because pageantry is never going to be a career.
Hmm.
Pageantry is never going to set the path of your life for you. It's going to be an experience. And hopefully, and most of the time, in fact, it's going to be a beautiful experience. It's going to be an experience that's really going to help you grow as a person.
Hmm.
But it's not going to be your career path. And it should
Hmm.
not be because how
Hmm.
long are you really going to do it? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I'm
It
so glad
makes
you put it that way, because the fact that you say it's not a career but it's an experience, I think that's the best way that it's been described since I've heard it. Because
yeah,
unfortunately, the stakes for young women in pageants is always set so high because of the public nature of the contest, and the quick sort of, although it looks quick to on the outside, there's work that
yeah,
goes into winning titles, but the sort of instant gratification that comes with winning a title, the fame, the money, the attention, the opportunities.
exactly.
I think, yeah, I think that, but especially in the world that we live in, of body dysmorphia and all of those other anorexia, all of those things, I think, yes, that is a lot of pressure. And what I get from my conversation with you, Anvita, is that mentorship is extremely important. when
It
it
is.
comes to any young girl who has these aspirations, because
Absolutely.
I think one aspect is, of course, the physical aspect, how you look,
Yes.
etc. But also how you mentally approach the world of pageants is extremely
Yes.
important. Or you can come out of it damaged for a very long time, I suspect.
That is true for a lot of things in the world. If you
Hmm.
don't have a good support system, you can
Hmm.
come out anything. See, life is such, especially the life we live nowadays, is
Hmm.
such that there are kids killing themselves over an exam result,
Or over social media posts. I mean,
over social media posts.
it's horrible. Hmm.
It is. So
Hmm.
I wouldn't find it fair to, just because we're talking about pageantry, I wouldn't find it fair to rest the blame with the entertainment world and the pageantry world, because though it
Hmm.
can be ruthless, it actually is not it does not cause as much of an issue as there are as many other avenues of life do right now.
Hmm.
There are things that do cause bigger issues that we should be focusing on when we place blame
Hmm.
as
Hmm.
such. But yes, I guess, like you said, the game of the day is good mentorship, whether it's
Hmm.
about pageants or whether about just going through life. We
Hmm.
place so much, yeah, actually, we do place so much, no, attention is not the right word, so much weight on what we achieve out of it, what we get out of it,
Hmm.
whether it's pageants or anything else. We
Yeah.
place so much weight on the result of it that we forget that there's the whole process to go through. And there's going to be another process to go through after that. The result is only going to last for maybe 5 seconds, 5 minutes, half an hour, or
Hmm.
maximum a few days.
Hmm.
It's not going to last the entire life. What's going to last is the process. And we don't teach our kids how to go through a process.
Anvita, you stepped away from the world of limelight and the entertainment industry and moved back home. Tell me a little bit about your own journey. I mean, what made you step away from it, seeing that you started out so young, 18, 19, in this world,
Yeah.
and then hit your, I assume, late 20s and decided to step away?
Um, it was actually the city, to be very honest. Not the industries, so to speak, but the city is such, it's a crowded place. And to get from place to place, it takes you 2 hours. You live in very cramped quarters. Even if you got your own place, even if you
Hmm.
got a whole one bedroom to yourself, it's still only 600 feet, square feet. And you don't have a balcony, you have no fresh air.
Hmm.
You're sacrificing a certain quality of life for certain dreams.
Hmm.
And sometimes those dreams are important, sometimes the quality of life is important. And
Hmm.
especially in today's day and world, you don't necessarily have to give up on either because
Hmm.
of the internet. What I
True.
want to do, the stories I want to tell, I can tell from anywhere in the world. And it's not what it was even 10 years ago, where you had to be in a certain geographical proximity of where everything is happening in order for something to happen. If I want to, if I want to start making shorts tomorrow, there is the whole world of YouTube out in front of me. If I want to start doing vlogs tomorrow, there is the whole world of YouTube, Instagram, entire social media out in
Hmm.
front of me,
Hmm.
right? So you don't really have to give up on a quality of life in order to do what you want to do.
Yeah. Well
And
said.
that made me move away.
Well said. I agree. Even I'm planning on moving from my city. So I totally hear you on that one. Anvita, since you also run a bookstore,
Yeah.
without recommending your book, tell me, what are your top five reads right now?
I'm reading something called Metazoa by Peter Godfrey Smith.
Okay.
It's a biological take on how human consciousness must have risen
Hmm.
through evolution. The guy is a professor at
Interesting.
the University of Sydney,
All
and
right.
he's been studying the philosophy of science, as I
Hmm.
believe. So
Hmm.
it's very interesting. I've only gone through about 20 pages so far, but so far it's been
Okay.
very interesting.
And what's selling in
Um,
your bookstore? I love to know that because I'm a writer as well. So I always like to know what's working.
Just yesterday I put Valmiki's Women by Anand
Yeah,
Neelkantan on the shelf. I put it on the shelf just yesterday, or maybe it was
right.
day before yesterday, not before
Uh-huh.
that at least, and it's already sold out.
Wow. He's actually sent me a copy of his book. I must get to reading it. But yeah,
I would
okay.
like to as well.
Interesting. I must. I
Yeah,
have it with me actually. So that's a good recommendation. And anything that you'd like to recommend to non-pageant aspirants like myself. I have to say this, although this is for pageant winners and aspirants. It's got a lot of useful tips. Just if you're interested in
yeah,
personal grooming and self-improvement, so you don't have to follow
yes,
the book cover to cover. But I
yes,
found some of the things that are written that Anvita shared in this book when it comes to grooming, hair, things like that. Especially now in this weird world that we're living in,
yeah.
where we always have to be camera ready. Even ordinary people. So I think you'll find a lot of useful tips in there for something you can refer to whenever you need to dress it up a little bit. And now we pretty much have to dress it up every day to sit in front of these cameras. But thank you so much, Anvita. It's such a pleasure. Please go
Same
ahead and
here.
share your organic Insta page because I really am a
Absolutely.
supporter of organic, and I think more people should turn to organic living. So, what's your Insta page so you can share that with everybody?
It's called at Farmers House MYS. Farmers House MYS. MYS for myself.
NYS.
MYS. M for
M
monkey.
Y. Oh, M for monkey, Y for yellow, S for Singapore.
Exactly.
Farmers House, MYS.
MYS. Yes.
All right, and thank you so much, Anvita, for joining
Thank you
me
for
this
having me here.
evening. And here's the book once again, Beauty Queen. It's, like I said, a guide to pageantry. But certainly, I mean, it's got great tips, even if you're just looking to self improvement. And who isn't really? We all can be the best versions of ourselves. And that's a lifelong project or a work in progress. So, thank you so much for joining us. At Kaleidoscope, we try
Thank
to
you so
bring
much for
you
having
not at all. We try to bring you different
me.
books, different authors across genres, across interest areas, because we are the Kaleidoscope and we want to give you and share with you every aspect of life, living, and really thriving. So, thank you, everybody, and see you next week.